Hey, good morning, Horizon Church. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of a follow up of what we're going to talk about on Sunday. I haven't talked about it yet because we didn't get to Sunday. But not only is it a follow up, but it's kind of my attempt to, I think, illustrate or demonstrate the idea of accountable relationships. And I want to talk to you about something that I have been working on, and I guess I'm doing this as a way of being authentic and talking about accountability and something that I have been learning, trying to learn anyway. So when I think about my own life, leading myself, trying to go from here where I am to there where I want to be, one of the things that I am conscious of and that I have been deliberately thinking about, how do I do this? How do I deal with this? Is I would like to be able to resolve stress and rush in my life, being rushed. I don't do well. Nobody does. I'm not a person that some people like thrive on stress, but what that means is they thrive on a little bit of pressure. That's when they get things done. Nobody thrives on being stressed in a negative way. And so I do. It's bad for us, bad for me. I make poor decisions, get angry, etc. So I've been thinking lately about how to resolve this issue of always being overly stressed, and how do I resolve this issue of being rushed and always feel like I just got things I got to get done. And I was listening some time ago, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what I've learned about this. I was listening some time ago to a man. I don't even remember who it was. I don't think the guy was a Christian, and I know it was a man because it's in my brain. It's a guy speaking. It might have been a TED Talk or something, but he was talking about the nature of time. He was not talking about stress, by the way, or being rushed, but he was talking about time and how we perceive, how we function as human beings within time. And there were some things that he talked about that just got my brain going. And I've been processing this and thinking about, this is something to do with stress for me. Here's what I mean. Let me explain it this way. Did you ever recognize that there's some things that we do, and the whole goal is just to get through them so that we can get to the next thing? And usually, for example, for me, one of them is driving. I kind of like driving. I like going for a drive. I like when we have to drive out to Wyoming, 32 hours in a car. But very often, I'm getting in a car, and the goal is to get to the next thing. That's why I'm doing it. Today, I had to take a trip over to Nazareth, over towards Bethlehem. I did not get in the car in any way to think about enjoying it. It's just I need to get to the next thing. Sometimes work is that way for a lot of people. People just work to get to the weekend. Sometimes there are specific things that we do during the day. For example, just today it happened. Somebody's coming into the office, somebody who just dropped in, and I was in the process of doing an email, and it's like, let me finish this email. And it's just do this thing so that I can get to the next thing. For men, this may not be true. Men and women, I don't mean to stereotype, but I do think that generally speaking, when it comes to shopping, I don't shop because I in any way enjoy shopping, even at Cabela's. I shop because I need to buy something, a pair of jeans or milk. And so I go shopping to get to the next thing. And it's funny because often I think from what I've heard, I think that sometimes women just enjoy shopping. Like they'll go shopping because they like the experience. I do not, and I don't think that a lot of men necessarily like shopping. So we do it just to get to the next thing. And the thing about this kind of experience in time, when we're doing something and the goal is just to get through it, to go to the next thing, whether we're talking about a simple thing like driving, or whether for some people it's a big thing like work, what happens when we do that kind of activity, when we approach what we're doing in that way, what I have found is that's a stress builder. Because inevitably what we're doing when the goal is, I just got to get through this, I got to move on to the next thing, inevitably our experience becomes one of frustration. You never hop in the car and have, I shouldn't say never, but generally speaking, like for me, it's not a pleasurable experience when I'm thinking I just got to get through it. I got to get to the next thing. Inevitably, that you run into traffic, you run into stoplights, and the person in front of you is driving too slowly, and you're looking at the green light up ahead, and you're thinking, like this person needs to hurry up. We're not going to make it through this light. And the worst thing is when he makes it through the light, turns yellow, he makes it through, and you can't. And you experience it as frustration. You're being blocked, and so sometimes our experience of moving through time is this way. I have this thing I have to do, and all I want to do is get through it and move on to the next thing. Sometimes that's our experience. On the other hand, there are some times when we recognize that the process is actually part of the pleasure in a thing. Here's what I mean by that. For example, when I was young, I used to build models. I loved building models. We used to get models for all my birthdays when I was a kid, and I realized at some point that I liked the process of building the model. I didn't particularly care about the finished product all that much. It was the process for me. I mean, I didn't care if it was a model of a ship, a plane, a car, whatever. I didn't collect them for the sake of having the finished product. For me, it was the process. It was the actual building of a model. The same is true, for example, with woodworking. I like the finished product. I do that because I appreciate the product, whether it's a table or whether it's something that Donna has said, hey, we need this, can you build it? I certainly like the finished product, but the process is just as important to me. The idea of taking a few pieces of wood, a flat piece of wood, and making them into something is enjoyable. Hunting is the same way for me. Although the very first day I went hunting this year, and I missed a lot because of being in Wyoming. So I'm missing about half of the hunting season this year. But the very first day that I got in my tree stand, I had an opportunity to shoot a buck, and I was looking at it and I'm thinking, man, if I do this on day one, my season's over and I don't want it to end. So I passed, which I hardly ever do. I'm looking at this thinking, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and I passed. But hunting for me is not just about the process of harvesting an animal and filling my freezer. As important as that is, it's the process. For me, it's a process of putting up, finding a place and putting up the tree stand and, putting up the tree stand and doing some scouting and the process for me of target practice, shooting my bow over and over and over again so that I feel much more prepared and skilled and ready to actually use a bow in the process in hunting. And it's all of that. It's not just the goal, it's the whole process. And what I learned when I was thinking about this gentleman talk about time and our experience of time and how we move through time, I realized that there are two different approaches for me. One, sometimes I look at just get through it. Whatever is happening, I'm just going to devote this period of time to getting through it so that I can get to the next thing. And the funny thing is, often I get to the next thing, and sometimes it's like, I just need to get through this. And it's this series of get through it, get through it, get through it. And I kind of wonder, I was looking forward to whatever it is. Why am I now rushing through this? When we are experiencing things in that way, just get through it. Inevitably, that leads to frustration and it leads to rush. And there are people, there are people I know who, for whatever reason, approach large chunks of life that way. People who hate work and can't wait to retire. And it's kind of like nobody has a job that is always enjoyable. I've been talking lately to several people who are retiring at a family event, and there's not many of us that are still working. And so I kind of jokingly at one point said, there's only two of us taking care of all you slackers who are retired. And after saying that, the one guy, when we had a few private moments, he said, so are you looking forward to retirement? And we were talking about my work. And his perception was, well, you must have, you have a job that you have to love and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I like parts of my job, but there's large parts of my job, like everybody, that I don't like, and they're frustrating. But there are people I know who experience their work that way, just get through it. And that has to be deadening to a human being's soul. So without thinking about it, I think many of us have adopted a just get through it kind of approach to the day, to the mindset. And as a result, I think there's a lot of deadening that happens to our spirits, and not necessarily that people like that feel rushed or feel busy, but it kind of kills our soul. It does the same thing to our souls that being rushed does and being stressed does. We skim through it. We can't love people deeply in any way when we're trying to just get through and experience. So what I'm learning, and this is the part where I guess I'm trying to be authentic and make myself accountable to all of you, and letting you know what I'm working on, is I'm trying to recognize that I want to be present through every part of the day. And what that means is even when I've arrived at a part of the day where it's like just get through it and get on to the next thing, I'm trying to recognize, wait a minute, why do I want to take this drive? It's a necessary thing. I can't avoid it. Why do I want to take this drive and make it into an exercise of frustration? I can't change the traffic patterns. I can't change whether or not the person in front of me is going to drive 5 miles below the speed limit and, cause me to sit at a red light. So why don't I just look at this as an opportunity? I'm just going to be present in this moment. I'm not saying that it's going to be a thrilling experience in that drive, but why not just be present rather than try to rush through it? Why not be deliberate about, okay, I'm going to be in the car for the next 45 minutes. And rather than just automatically turning on the radio, why not ask, is there something beneficial that I can listen to? Or even for me, I rarely listen to the radio anymore. Sometimes I have a CD of kind of classical music. It's actually, don't even want to get into that, but it's something that somebody gave to me, and I really appreciate it. And so I listen to that over and over again to the place where I've almost memorized it. And for me, it's a very deliberate calming of the soul, of my soul. So can I learn to take these moments that are normally just get through it moments and just be present, just be deliberate? Can I look at all of the people that I'm going to meet in those just get through it as people with whom I have an opportunity to connect during the day, rather than just, I need to get through the line, I bought milk at Weiss's, I just need to get out of here? Can I instead look at that moment of, I just want to be present? And that sounds like a weird thing, but that's what I mean. Just be present in those moments when I'm going through Weiss, engaging in conversations with people that I happen to be seeing, and practicing my one sentence more conversational techniques with the people that I'm interacting with, the clerk or whoever it is. If I use the self-checkout, there's always somebody hovering around. Can I smile and say, hey, how are you doing? Whatever it is, just be present. Can I use whatever I'm doing as opportunities to say, I want to be engaged with this rather than just get through it? I think in part this is what is meant by Ephesians. There's a sentence in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11, about redeeming the time. And in part, I think that's what this means. To redeem the time means no longer looking at time as just let me get through this and move on to the next thing, but to think about that particular time and being present in it. So that's something I'm working on. And I guess I'm saying this like this is, if I was in an accountable relationship with you, which is what we'll be talking about this upcoming Sunday. By the time you watch this, it will be last Sunday. in part, that's what that means. Making myself accountable. I would be sharing this with somebody and saying, this is something that I'm working on. And that would lead to conversations with people if I was making myself accountable. Lead to conversations like, how are you doing? Conversations about how am I doing with, driving, and how am I doing with those ordinary things that sometimes we think we just want to get through it. Am I learning to do this? So that's something I'm working on in my journey and leading myself from here to there, trying to figure out how can I remove stress from my life? How can I remove busyness? It is not always an issue of removing things from my schedule. It's learning to look at my schedule in a different way and just saying, you know what, I got to spend 45 minutes in the car. Is there a way for me to be present in it rather than just sitting in the car and going, "Arr," and then looking at everything that happens as obstacles to me getting there? I think this is something all of us can do, but it is something that I'm working on, redeeming the time, being present in the time. So, and recognize that the process is just as important as the journey. And there are some things in life that we do that really well. We do really well with some things. Then there's other times when, for us, the process is just get me there. And the funny thing is, sometimes we get there, and we just rush through that as well. And that's not what we're after. We want to be able to be present, even when it's a mundane thing like driving the car or whatever it is, shopping. So that's what I'm working on. And making myself accountable to all of you and demonstrating how we do that. So let me pray, and then you and I can get on with our day. Let me pray. God, thanks for your faithfulness, your goodness to us. God, I thank you that you give all of us the gift of time, and time is the same for all of us. I know, God, that there's a way in which we experience time differently. There are moments that go so fast, and then there are moments that go so slow. Waiting for a birthday, God, seems to take much longer than waiting for the dentist. And God, I pray that you'd help us to recognize that whatever we're doing with our time, we can be present and we can be engaged. And by doing that, God, we're actually, without changing much at all, we're just working on removing some of the stress and busyness and frustration from our life. I pray, God, you'd help me with this. This is something I'm working on. I pray, God, that you would engage people to help me with this and to be conscious of it. And then, God, I pray you'll help me to be growing. Thank you, God, for your faithfulness to us. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for this gift of time. How cool it is that we get to live in a world that has time in it. And we move through life as we move through time. God, thank you for the day ahead of us. I pray, God, that you would help us in this day to redeem the time. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everybody, hope you have a wonderful day and redeem the time as you go through this day. Love you all. Goodbye.